Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Horror 421, the podcast. I'm your host, small town horror author Charles Campbell. And today I have a very special guest. She's appeared in over 60 film, TV, and theater productions. And she caught my eye from an anthology film that I've watched every year for the past 4 or 5 years on Halloween. And the name of the anthology film is 1031. And she is in the opening story. And her name is Cindy Maple. And Cindy, thank you for being on the podcast today.
Thank you for asking me.
And Cindy has a special guest with her. She has her Doberman
I
Ginger.
do. Doberman. His name is Vlad.
Vlad. And I have a beagle, but he's lying down over here staring at me like he always does.
Yeah, well, Vlad can't be more than about a foot away from me at any given time if I'm in the house. So we're gonna do it together, aren't we?
Awesome.
Right?
Well, that's good. You have a good protector there.
It's right. He's my manager.
He's your manager?
Yes.
Okay, well, we'll get right into it. Before I start with questions, if you could give my listening audience a little bit of background on yourself, how you came to be an actress and a director and a producer. You've done all kinds of things. So give us a little background.
I have. Well, I started doing speech competitions when I was in 6th grade, and it was a bug. It just stuck, and did high school theater, studied college, theater in college, and speech and mass communications and all of that in college. And it just never went away. I was doing a community theater play. I'd done a lot of theater. And one of the directors that I was working with at the time knew some people that were getting ready to do some horror movies. And he's like, hey, you should go and audition. So I did, just, on a whim, was cast as the lead. Had no idea what I was doing because I'd never done any type of film work before. And it's just kind of snowballed from there and kind of never looked back. I haven't done a lot of theater actually since. So.
Oh, nice. Well,
and then, just one thing always just kind of leads to another. I started producing, and then the next thing I knew, I was directing and writing, and, I just love it. So,
well, from what I've seen, you're very good at it. And there's a couple of things I definitely want to talk about outside of 1031. But, you mentioned horror. This is a horror podcast. Did you grow up loving horror? Were you kind of one of those people that didn't really get into it?
No, I loved it. I absolutely loved it. I grew up watching Abbott and Costello meet Frankenstein. That's like my kind of horror. Any kind of horror comedy is like my favorite. But I remember when I saw The Exorcist for the first time, and it's still my favorite horror movie, and it just stuck with me. To me, if you're going to do independent film and you want to do dramatic independent film, most of the time it has to be horror because nobody really does independent dramatic. It's either comedy or it's horror movies. So,
well, yeah, and I found that to be true. I've got a good friend. He does a lot of independent horror films, but if he does any other type of film, he did do a couple of dramas, but it's generally comedy. So he's either doing horror or comedy.
It just tends to go that way. There's a few people that do dramatic pieces, but it's pretty rare to find that.
Well, you mentioned The Exorcist. That's in my top 5 all-time favorite horror films too. And
I just watched it again a couple of weeks ago. It's just one of those things.
Yeah, so did I in preparation for the newest movie, which I won't talk too much about. I don't know if you've seen the latest film.
I have not. I've purposely stayed away just because nothing's as good as the original. So
yeah, well, I probably should have stayed away. All it did was make me mad. But for those of you that want to go see it and judge for yourself. I never like to push my opinion of a film and influence someone into not watching it. If you want to go see it, go see it. You may love it. I did not. All right. Well, I want to talk about a little short. You've done quite a few shorts, and there's one that I jotted down that I definitely want to go back and look at. It's called Out of My Mind. And that looked intriguing to me. I just haven't had time to watch it yet. But what I did watch was something very well written. It was very well directed. It was very well acted. And it was called Random. And I randomly watched it. And it was...
You randomly watched it, right?
Randomly watched it.
Right. That was my very first directing, writing, everything. So I had produced a couple of things before then, but that was the first thing that I had written, produced, direct, acted in, everything.
Well, where
Chose the music.
the concept of the story, where'd that come from?
Actually, I had written it about 3 years before we had ever decided to shoot it. I was involved in a 48-hour film project. And we all had to like pick a genre and go ahead and write something that was about 7 minutes long. So that was what I wrote. It didn't wind up getting used. So it was one of those things that was kind of always rattling around in my brain that I thought, well, I'll get back to that at some point in time. And then a friend of mine that I had worked with on other projects had gotten some new equipment and he wanted to use it. And I said, we happen to have this story that I kind of like to do. And he was going to direct it and everything. He goes, you know what? You direct it. You know it. You love
Right.
it, obviously. And he's like, you do it. You do everything on it, and I'll shoot it. And I'm like, okay, let's go. Let's do this. And it has served me well. It's brought me lots of awards. It took me all the way to the Directors Guild of America in LA. I got to see it on their big theater there. So
Oh,
it was
wow.
amazing. Yeah, it's been an amazing trip with that one.
Well, I'm definitely going to watch it again. I'll probably watch it a few more times just to see if I can pick up things that I missed. I like to watch shorts. I do like anthologies, and obviously I like independent horror and horror movies in general. But that one kind of connected with me a little bit, and so much so that I maybe would love to see an extended version, make it a little longer to kind of give the little backstory behind, you know, you guys before what
How we
happened
got
happened.
there?
Yeah,
Yeah.
how you got there. And maybe that could fit to an anthology one of these years.
I
I
have
don't
a
know.
little I have a little 2 minute one that I did that it's definitely it's in there all the time rattling around about okay, well what got us to this point and how do we get to that point? And so yeah, that 2 minute one is gonna drive me crazy until I do something with it.
Well, for my listening audience, it's called Random, and it is a short, and it's everything is done by Cindy. I mean, she has a great actor, and she mentioned his name, and I'll let her talk about him again because my wife tells me I don't listen all the time, and she's right. So, but we'll mention him again. But the story's really good. I'll put a link below in the podcast notes so you guys can click right on it and check it out. But it's really worth checking out, and I don't want to ruin it, so I don't want to come out and say
Yeah, it's
exactly what
hard
it
to
is.
say anything. Yeah, it's hard to talk about it because it is a short and yeah, you can give things away pretty easily on the short. So
Yep. And you know, without giving anything away, there was a certain part in the short where I'm like, oh, that doesn't look right. And then
there's a reason why certain things don't look right in that. Yeah.
but yeah, I completely enjoyed it.
There's
So
a very one of my favorite movies is The Sixth Sense.
mhm.
I love movies that mess with your mind, and it that was one of those movies that when I saw it for the first time, I literally walked out of the theater, turned around, and went back in to see it again because the ending changes everything for
Right.
you. And Random was kind of like my homage to that,
Yeah.
because I wanted people to go, oh, now I got to watch it again because I obviously wasn't paying attention. So.
Yeah, well, I felt the same way after watching The Sixth Sense, but I was a latecomer on The Sixth Sense. I didn't watch it until it was out on DVD, but I did kind of like what you did. I watched it one time on DVD and I was like, what the hell just happened? And I started
Yeah,
it over.
exactly. The ending changes everything, and you're like, oh, now I got to see it again because I wasn't paying attention,
E-
obviously.
Exactly. That's kind of how I felt when I watched it. All right, so I want to move up a little bit and let's get into 1031 just a little bit.
Okay.
It was a great anthology. I enjoyed all of the stories, but for me, it's kind of like they put they put the best in front. I enjoyed that story more than the rest, and it may be a great thing where they came in with a bang with this, but the story was well
I like
written.
all of them,
Yeah,
so
yeah, I do too. I do too. I'm not detracting from any of them, but that topped them all for me. So, tell me
well, good.
how
I'm glad. I'm so glad.
tell me how you became involved with the project with Justin, how you became involved with 1031, and then we'll talk about the story a little bit. This thing's been out for several years, and a lot of my listeners have already watched it. So I'm not going to
Right.
worry about spoilers too much on this one. But if you haven't seen it, while we're talking about this, you may want to go, look at something else or listen to something else or go watch this movie. It's on Tubi right now for free. You can go to screamteamreleasing.com and order your own copy. But now we're going to get into 1031 a little bit. So I'm going to be quiet and let you kind of tell me how you got involved with that project.
Well, poor Justin and Zane Hirschberger, who was cinematographer on our segment, and then did the next one, The Trespassers, was also Zane's. They inherited me, whether they wanted me or not. I was working on a horror film called Volumes of Blood Horror Stories, which was done by PJ Starks in Owensboro, Kentucky, which is really close to where I was living. And I'd known PJ for a really long time. We'd always wanted to work together. And he was working on that, and he wanted me to be a part of it. And Justin and Zane had agreed to do one of the segments for him. And they just got whoever PJ gave them as far as actors go. So they came in blind, having no idea what they were going to wind up with. And I was one of them that they wound up with. So I loved working with them. They were so organized, and they just knew exactly what they wanted, and they were so great. They're very much actor directors. They like walk you through everything. They had it all mapped out. They knew exactly what they were doing. And so it was just such a pleasure to work with them. And so when they got ready to do this one, they live in Pennsylvania. I was in Kentucky and, well, actually Indiana, which is right across the bridge. It's a long story.
Right.
But they reached out and said, would you be willing to like come to Pennsylvania and do this segment with us? And so I like Googled it, I'm like, it's about 7.5 hours. Sure, let's do it.
Right.
So that's how I wound up working with them again. And I loved the story. It was a wonderful story. And then I get there, and it's this beautiful bed and breakfast that we get to shoot in. I mean, it was gorgeous. We really didn't have to do a lot of set dressing because the house just sold it. We didn't, besides some lighting, that was all we really had to do. But it was just such a great story that I just couldn't wait to get there. And so the rest, is kind of history. So that's how they wound up with me.
Well, the set was amazing, like you said, and
Yeah.
I'm going to give the audience a little, a little information on the story. Again, if you haven't seen it, go watch 1031. Go order it from screamteamreleasing.com. Free to watch on Tubi.com. But the story kind of blew me away. I thought it was really well done. So it's about these two guys. They're basically coming to bid on a job, I guess, to
Right.
to promote the bed and breakfast, if I'm gathering that information correctly. I think that's what they were trying to
Right.
do. And your character Kathy had an ulterior motive of why to have them over here.
Yeah, just a little bit,
yeah.
a little bit of ulterior motive. Yeah.
And you kind of put the pressure on the guys, and you're telling them, I want to get this done now. They want to go and wait a couple days and come back later and blah, blah, blah. And you're like, no, we have to do this tonight. And they're like, you'll pay them so much money to do it tonight. And they're like, oh, great. And then the stuff that happens.
And I'm really tired. So you would think that I wouldn't want to mess with it that night. It's Halloween, you would think that I would have no desire to be a part of that.
You would think that, right? But the story,
Yeah, you would think.
The name of the story is Old Hag, or The Old Hag. And you have a special guest in that bed and breakfast. Again, spoilers, you guys take off if you haven't seen it, but there's a special guest in the house. And Kathy is exhausted. She's yawning throughout the whole process. She just is dead to the world almost. She's dead beat. And I was watching that thinking, okay, what's the connection here? Why is she so tired? So kind of fill me in.
And I seem like such a nice person too.
Yeah, you seem like you probably are. I mean,
yeah, I am. I mean, yeah.
She doesn't want to do that. I mean,
no.
But what kind
Well, I don't know. I think she does. I think she really does want to do it. Although she has a moment. There is a moment where you find out that maybe she's not, comfortable with this.
Let's get into the backstory a little bit. Tell me what the connection between, if you know it, what was the connection between Cindy and the Old Hag? How did you two get?
Yeah,
Kathy
that is That's never discussed. From what I understand, there was a really long monologue that my character gives that was kind of cut out just for time and
Right.
everything. It just there just wasn't enough time for it. But she kind of talks about how everybody calls it the gingerbread house and all of that. So and you know that this is something that she's done before. So I think that she's always been there. I think she bought the house and bought the old hag when she bought the house. And so she's just been dealing with her this entire time. And like once a year, maybe she gets to actually, get a little peace and quiet from her. I don't
Okay.
know. It's
Yeah.
possible she does it more often, but we don't know.
But I mean, Kathy doesn't sleep. And then it seems like when you finally get that chance to lay down on the couch and sleep, that is your character's goal. You just want to rest. That's
Yeah,
what I got out of it.
exactly. Just wants to sleep. That's all she wants. Yeah.
Oh my goodness. But yeah, that
But I
was
mean, if you went to bed every night and this old hag was like on your chest, keeping you from sleeping, you'd want to sleep. You'd want to, take care of that problem.
oh yeah, oh for sure. It because in the way I interpreted it, the old hag can't really kill you because you're bringing her what she needs.
Exactly. Yeah, I'm kind of the caretaker of the house and the old hag. So I think they're combined. They're, just it's a package deal. When you buy that house, you get the
Yeah.
old hag and you have to take care of her too.
Well, I'm wondering why Kathy didn't call a real estate agent.
I know, right? She really should have.
Oh my goodness. But
Maybe once you're there, you're just there. You can't leave. I don't know.
the story was fantastic.
We
Not
could
the
definitely expand that movie, I think.
you definitely could. You could make I'm not a director. I do write some small town horror fiction, but I'm not a movie director.
Maybe Kathy gets tired of it and sells the house, and then there's your new story. The new people, discover what they have to do to survive in that house.
Or maybe Kathy doesn't provide the old hag what she needs one year, and the old hag just says, screw this, we're just going to kill Kathy, and then
Yeah,
the
that's
the
very possible
the new
too.
the new owners move in, and they're like,
Yeah,
and they
that's
get they
very
get they
possible.
get the house super cheap, like all the horror movies. When you see a house, it's
Right. They're like, why is this house so cheap?
don't worry about it. Well, anyway, you guys go pick up a copy of 1031. Cindy was amazing in it, and the two young men that
We had so much fun. I mean, they're hilarious. So yeah, we had a blast. We really did.
well, do you have any a fun story or two from that set? Did those
Oh my gosh. No, I mean, I can't really remember anything in between,
Yeah, I got
shooting
you.
and everything, but I mean, they literally were cutting up all the time. But yeah, I mean, they were tired, there would be moments where we would all be tired, and somebody would make up some funny thing, and it would be like, okay, let's go.
Well,
Because I mean, we shot it all in one week, so there wasn't a lot of time. So
oh wow, that's a lot to shoot in that period of
yeah, it
time.
is. And so it was very long days. Yeah.
Well, I think Justin told me in our podcast, but I can't remember who got the honor of playing the old hag. Was that Justin?
His name is Zed. I don't remember what his last name is, unfortunately. But he is also, I think, the scarecrow, maybe in the barn.
Okay, cool. Yeah.
He is really, really tall and really, really thin. So yeah, and creepy as he could possibly be when he was in the old hag stuff. Of course, I sent you that picture of him, but yeah, he's he's scary.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. For sure.
The scariest part was is that they had built like a chest for him because of the shower scene,
Yep, yep,
and it had
yep.
to be seen. So yeah, there were moments of the boys playing with the chest. It was it was that was probably the funniest moment that I can remember is that they would like actually be feeling up the old hag, which yeah, it's just hilarious.
Oh man.
Because I mean, with the mega lot, it was disgusting.
I can imagine. I can only imagine. Well, anyway, you guys go pick up a copy of it at screamteamreleasing.com. So I want to jump back to you again for just a bit. Um, I'm always interested in writers' perspectives, and it seems like you have a writer's hat that you use, and
I do. I do it every day. I'm a
that's
copywriter in radio, so I put that hat on pretty much every day.
well, that's awesome. So I'm always interested in other writers' perspectives, how they come up with their ideas and what their processes are. And I ask this of all authors that I have on my podcast. So I'm going to ask it of you. What is your process to put something together? How your creative process, how did you come up with the concept for random? How did that hit you? That is one specific, but in generally speaking, how do you come up with what you do when you start typing on your keyboard?
I am very much a work backwards type of person. It's usually because to me, because of the influence of like The Sixth Sense and The Others, which is another movie that I absolutely love. I always start it's an idea of how it's going to end, and then I work backwards from that because it's like, how did we get there? And then I just map it out. You do your whatever you have to do to get there, and it's usually some sort of form that I go through, and it's yeah, I mean, I don't know how I do it. It's just always there's an idea. There's
Right.
like this kernel of an idea, and it's usually how it's going to end is how that idea starts, and then I just always work backwards. That's just how I am
Well,
when it comes to stuff like that.
that's definitely a unique perspective. I don't think, I mean, I've done that, I guess myself, where I have an ending in mind, and it's like, how do I get there? Uh, you
Yeah,
know,
I mean, I'm sure it's probably not right. I don't know if there is a right way to
no,
write.
there's not a right way.
Yeah, there isn't. No, but for me, that's always what it is. It's always
Yeah.
that idea of, oh, that would be really cool. And then it's like, okay, but how do we get to that? And then I just start taking the steps back and
Yeah.
that's where it comes from. So,
Well, some, authors talk to, they do outlines and all that shit. And
oh yeah. And that's obviously, once you have that idea and you
yeah,
start going backwards, you have to kind of have to outline, okay, well, these are the steps to get to that.
and
Um,
exactly. But my strokes are a lot broader. So I don't, I have kind of a mindset of where I want to start, where I want to end. And then the middle is kind of a free for all. It comes as it comes.
right, exactly. Well, and I did a short film a few years back called Ebola, which I would highly recommend that you check out. It's very fun. It is it, it was a matter of my husband came home from bowling with his buddies for the night, and he was talking about how the other guys he was with, were like oogling and ogling over all the women that were at the bowling alley. And I'm just like, wow, it would be really cool if they were zombies and they killed those guys. And I'm like, okay, that's the end. So how do I get there? So watch Ebola and you'll figure out how I got there.
Oh, nice.
So
I'm definitely gonna check
that
it
was,
out.
yeah, that was my first horror comedy, and I loved it. I absolutely loved it. It was so much fun.
Well, you sent me your I am DB. Am I getting that in the right?
IMDb, yeah,
IMDb profile. So I took a look at that. You've been in a ton of stuff.
I
Um,
have.
you have, and I'd like to talk about some of it. Even the thing, I mean, a lot of it I haven't seen yet because I just didn't have time before we sat down to speak. But I'm going to go back and check out some of the stuff. But one of the things I found interesting is you were on the Travel Channel's A Haunting. Um,
Yeah.
what season were you on? What do you know? What episode
It
people can
was
check out?
season 10, episode, I want to say 5. It was called The Haunted Cabinet.
All right. Well, tell us a little bit about that experience because that
Well,
sounded really cool to me.
it's very cool. Yeah, I for the past 5 years I've moved 3 times. So I'm currently in Wisconsin. At the time I was living in Virginia Beach, which was where I was at, like right before we wound up in Wisconsin.
I lived there
And
5 years.
Oh, did you really? So I was there for about a year and a half. So in a year and a half, I was able to do a haunting with the Travel Channel, which it was just a casting call that I responded to, and got booked for it. And it was great fun. It's always great when you get to work in the industry, on a real set, because you learn so much more than you do on indie film. Indie film's very guerrilla style,
Right.
it's shoot and go, and it's sometimes thought out, sometimes not so much thought out. So to be on a professional set was absolutely amazing. So I did that. I had a chance to work on Walking Dead World Beyond, which was shooting in Richmond, Virginia when I was living there. So I got 3 days on that set. It is the worst of the series of The Walking Dead. It was only 2 seasons. It was horrible, but it was really cool to be a zombie for a couple of days and, go through all of
Oh, heck
that.
yeah. Well, my friend was an
Yeah.
extra. He was an extra on the big war with Negan scene.
Oh,
And
very
yeah,
cool.
yeah,
Very
when
cool.
when they all were marching down. Anyway, he was one of
Yeah,
he.
any scene that I am in, it's massive zombies, and you can't ever see me. I've never seen myself, so but I don't care. It was a great experience. It was so much fun. And I worked on a Showtime series that Ethan Hawke did, called The Good Lord Bird. And I got to stand right next to him, and it was
Nice.
amazing. He was so great, because we're a bunch of extras, and he's like talking to us like we're just normal people, and I'm like, it's Ethan Hawke. And I got to do an Apple TV series that is called Swagger, and it's the story of Kevin Durant. It was really cool basketball story that's on Apple. So I got a lot of opportunity while I was in Virginia to do that, and I was also working for a local video production company, advertising type agency at the same time, and met Caleb Chamberlain, who has become such a dear, dear friend of mine, and did a short film with him, which was called Three Murders in Manhattan. And it's kind of a murder noir type thing. It was
Right.
really, really cool. And now he is in Texas. I am in Wisconsin, and we're still working together. He has a new thing coming out that I'm so excited about. For anybody that knows the video game Titanfall, which is like huge. I knew nothing about Titanfall when he approached me about doing this project with him.
Right.
I've learned a lot since then, like the fact that the fans are just insane about this game. So there's Titanfall and then Titanfall 2, and they're all waiting for Titanfall 3, which doesn't look like it's ever going to happen. But he is a huge fan of Titanfall. So he wrote a fan series that I've worked on. And so it is the future of indie filmmaking, and the way hopefully we'll all be able to work. It's all fans. It has nothing to do with the people that created Titanfall, which is Respawn and EA Games. They're
Right.
not involved at all. It's all fan based. We're all doing it for free just to help Caleb out. So what we did, we all recorded our faces and our voices for his characters. And so he's taken our facial features and the way our faces move and our voices and created characters off of them. So
Nice.
it will actually be me, because it'll be my face. It's not, she doesn't look like me. My character is Celise Arethusa, who is one of the main characters. So I'm very honored that
Nice.
I mean, it started with, he like contacted me out of the blue and was like, I'm going to do this teaser trailer, and will you do the voiceover? Because I do a lot of voiceover work. I'm like, sure. He's like, it's like 4 lines, it's super easy. Give me a couple different reads. I'm like, okay. So I sent it back to him. And then this teaser trailer like blew up. Everybody just loved it. So he's like, I got to make this series now. So it's going to be 6 different episodes. They start on March 11th, and his latest trailer just went over like 25,000 views in like 6 days.
Oh
It's
wow.
crazy. And yeah,
Wow.
the fans are like, I don't even care if we get Titanfall 3. I want this, So he's got a built-in fan base for this because of the people that love the games. And of course, he's a gamer, so he's out there with them too. So it's really exciting. My character is amazing. I just fell in love with her. She's tough, but her arc is amazing. What this woman is going to go through in this series, people are going to love this. I don't think I've been this excited about anything in a long time.
Oh
So
wow. I'm
so
definitely gonna
that's
check
coming
it out.
out March 11th. So
Nice. Do you have like a link people can go to check that out?
he is on YouTube under Plot Coalition.
Population. Okay, I'm gonna put a link in the podcast notes below for the folks
Oh,
who
we
are
would love
listening.
that. Yeah,
Okay.
they should absolutely check it out.
Okay.
It's very exciting.
I'll definitely put that in there. Um, well, yeah, it sounds like you have some pretty awesome stuff coming up.
I do, and I haven't done a horror movie in like 4 years, just because I've been moving so much. I just really
right.
haven't done anything. And out of nowhere, I saw a casting call, I don't know, a month or so ago, for a found footage film that was filming relatively close to where I live here. And so I, sent in, and I got a little part in it. So it's called Stalked by Shadows, and it's going to be a found footage, which I've never done found footage before. So this ought to be really interesting. So
Yeah,
it's a small part, but I don't know anybody in this area, so I really haven't had a lot of opportunities. So this is how you get opportunities. For
right.
anybody listening out there that wants to be an actor, just go for it. That's what you do. You see a casting call, you send in your information, and you hope for the best.
Yeah, well, exactly. I have a good friend, like I said, he's an independent filmmaker and he's a TV producer. He produced a series on Amazon, Boggy Creek, the series, and he's completely
Oh, I've
independent.
heard of that. Yeah,
Yeah,
I've heard of that.
yeah, and his name is Henrik Kuto, for the people in the United States, but he also goes by Enrique Kuto. So shout out to Henrik. He's a good friend of mine. Has a
Cool.
great weekly podcast if you want to check it out. It's weeklyspooky.com. He
I'm going to check that out.
well, he features authors all over the country.
Oh, that's great.
They submit their short stories to them, and it's horror centric, so they're horror short stories, and he narrates them in such incredible ways.
I
So
love that. Two of the films that I've done, Out of My Mind, that you talked about earlier, and what is the Telemarketer, which was the very first thing that I produced, were written by a gentleman that, they were short stories, and I knew him, and, I just asked him, can I have your stories? And he's like, yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Like, just give me credit, and I'm like, absolutely, I will give you credit. So
Well,
and there's always a little bit of tweaking because of film, some things just don't play unless you change it a little bit. So but Out of My Mind was his. John Cosper is his name, by the way. I don't think I mentioned that, but Out of My Mind was originally his. It was originally called Drip Drip, which I didn't think it was a very good name. I was like, it's got like weird connotations to it. So I'm like, let's change the name. So Out of My Mind definitely made more sense for it. So
well, something similar happened to me today. Actually, I submitted a short story to Henrik. He was asking authors who regularly contribute to contribute holiday Christmas stories for him to read in December. And I finished one up actually this morning. I finished it. And I sent it over to him, and I said, "Don't have a title, so come up with the best thing you can." So you
right.
got to. So I'm leaving it up to him to title that one. So there you go, Henry. Gave you something to do.
That happens sometimes. Huh?
So you've been really busy and you've done a lot of things. So tell me about some of the challenges you faced, creating films and writing, directing, producing. I like to know some of the challenges that you had to beat down and overcome to get where you are right now.
Well, and I always say this, I didn't have challenges because I had a built-in community to work with, because I started as an actress, and I had, done a lot of favors for a lot of people.
Right.
So when it was time for me to get behind the camera, they were all there for me. I would just, say, hey, can you help me out? And they would always be there. So I have never had a challenge when it came to that. I mean, I would say the biggest challenge I had was too much help.
Oh
It's like, I
wow.
don't need that much. Yeah, it would be like, I don't know what I can do with you. You can stand around and, I don't know, get some food or something. Yeah, so I mean that I honestly have never had that kind of challenge. My problem now is because I've moved so much and now I'm in Wisconsin where I know nobody. So, it's like if I want to get back into it, I have to build that community again.
Right.
And I'm not young anymore. So it's like, yeah, I'm kind of worn out. It's like now I spend my time doing commercial work and and it's nice to get paid. It's really
Yeah.
nice
Yeah.
because most independent film does not pay, in case you're wondering. But yeah, so it's nice to just do commercial work and get paid for it. And so that's pretty much what I concentrate on now. So
Yeah. Well, I've had quite a few independent film directors on this show, and they have to scrape by to get the
yeah,
films made, and
yeah,
it's a lot of
exactly.
favors. It's a lot of
It
uh,
is. It
here,
is.
we'll have pizza. Well,
Yeah, I'll feed you. I'll
yeah,
feed you. I'll give you IMDb credits. Yeah.
yeah,
I'll give you some gas money if I have any left over. Yeah.
yeah.
And I can say when I could, I paid my actors just because coming from a place of never getting paid, it was nice to be able to pay them. So if I didn't have the money to be able to afford my actors, then I just didn't feel like I should do it. So
Right.
but that's that was guilt
Oh
from
yeah,
where I was coming from
yeah, yeah.
so
No, I get it. I do. I mean, my the thing I do is I write small town horror pictures, and so it's only on me. I don't have to hire actors or anything like that. It all has to come from my brain, and I don't really have
right.
to worry about much. And that's and I publish independently. I publish under Valley Board Publications, so I find that to be it works for me, and it works for a lot of people now. Independent publishing is taken off over the last 10 years.
It really has. Yeah, I have a lot of friends that do that, and yeah, they are busy all the time doing it, so it's great. But yeah, even like with Ebola, I needed like 30 some odd women to be part of this bowling alley and to basically kind of be background actors that
Right,
I was going to turn into zombies, and it was going to be a long day's worth of work for these ladies. So I couldn't afford to pay all of them,
right.
but I bought them all t-shirts. I bought them all little gift bags, just
Yep.
something,
To
just,
show the
and,
appreciation.
and
Yep.
they had a blast. I hope they all seemed like they were having fun. So, they got food, they got the bowl. so, so they seemed like they were having a good time. Plus
Well,
I actually had, his name's Will Chase. He was on the show Nashville for a long time. He played Luke Wheeler, I think his name was, on Nashville. He's been on Stranger Things. He was one of the dads on Stranger Things. So all the ladies knew that he was going to be there. So I think that had a lot to do with why they wanted to come because he's not hard on the eyes. So I think they all kind of wanted to be around him. So
hey, whatever gets it done, right? Whatever
right,
gets it
yeah, I'm
done.
like, show up. I'll make sure you get an autograph, whatever it takes. So,
Exactly. Well, I want to talk about your directing a little bit more. So, what inspired you to become a director? You said you started off as an actor and then you got behind the
mhm.
camera, but there's a story there. How did you flip the switch? What made you want to be a director? Who inspired you to be a director?
Okay, so the very first thing that I produced called The Telemarketer, um, I was working on it. It was almost done, and my director said, "This isn't up to my quality," and he walked away.
Oh, wow.
So So I just had to like finish it because I wasn't going to let everybody down that was a part of it because I'm not that kind of person. I
Right.
wanted them to have something to show for all the work that they had put into it. So I learned a lot on that set, like who to trust for one thing and who
Right.
not to trust. Even though I call myself a producer on that one, I really wound up being the director. So it was kind of a baptism by fire, just trying to figure things out. So when my friend wanted to use that equipment. And I told him I had an idea for a story. The first thing he said was, you should direct it, you should do
Right.
it. And I was scared to death because I knew, okay, I'm going to be producing this, I'm going to be directing this, I'm going to be acting in this. I'm like, am I ready for that? And I was just like, yeah, let's do it. I'll learn as I go. And he's a great director. One of the other guys that was helping out with it was a great director. So they were all there, supporting me and helping me through it, and saying, you sure you want to do that? I'm like, yeah, I think that's what I want. But I mean, that was one of those situations that I had a very clear vision of
Right.
what I wanted that film to look like. The very last shot in it, I never knew how we would be able to do it, but I knew that was the way it needed to be shot. And I don't want to give too much away, but
Right.
basically the camera had to be over the top of us, come up and swing around and follow out. And
Okay.
at the time when I came up with the idea, there weren't gimbals, which is what we wound up using, which was the piece of equipment that my friend had that
Gotcha.
he wanted to use. So it all worked out perfectly. But there are many, many pictures of me laying in that bed, half naked. You've seen it.
Oh
I'm
yeah.
half naked, blood all over my back,
Yep.
looking at a monitor because we did that final shot probably 20 times before we got it right, because we also had a mirror that we had to deal with. And we'd every once in a while catch somebody in the mirror that wasn't supposed to be in the
Uh,
mirror. So they would basically shoot it. They'd bring me the monitor and I would watch it because I couldn't move too
right.
awful much because of
Yeah.
the shot that we were trying to get. So yeah, and we did that like 20 times before we finally got it. So yeah, you learn the hard way. You learn the hard way. What I learned, which my second film is called Out of My Mind, I'm not in that one. Well, I take that back. I made a little cameo. I did one of those kind of things. But
Yeah.
I wasn't in it because I'm like, this is too hard. This is way too hard. So, and
Well, I
people
hope.
always ask me, would you rather be in the on camera or behind the camera? And I live in both worlds. I love them both, but directing's fun. It really is. It's just to see something that was this little idea just come to life is just amazing. So my favorite thing is to sit in front of an editing bay and just watch it come together. I think that's amazing.
That is amazing. And like I said, I watched Random today, and I couldn't get it out of my head after I watched it. I'm actually going to go watch it again, see if I can pick
Good.
up some
that's
things.
that's the idea. That is definitely the idea behind that one.
And I'm definitely going to put links below, to your YouTube page and where people can find some of the things that you've worked on personally.
I appreciate that.
The one other question I had for you, since you're really, really good at what you do, if you could spend a day with any director, if you had access to anybody and you could spend, I don't know, spend 2 weeks with them, who would that director be? I'm just curious.
It would, unfortunately, he just died. William Friedkin would be the director of The Exorcist. I just read a book about the 50 year is on the 50-year anniversary. It's so in depth, but the fact that he never shot that movie as a horror movie, he was shooting it as more of like a detective type.
Mhm.
I mean, he did the French Connection, I
Right.
mean, that's the way he shot The Exorcist. He was kind of shocked when people were calling it a horror movie, which it's, the classic horror movie, So sorry, losing my voice. So yeah, definitely William
That,
Friedkin,
that,
without a
that,
doubt.
well, that is for me. I said it's in my top five. It's probably number one. It's just, even though
It's brilliant.
it
And
is.
I think the fact that he didn't shoot it as a horror movie is why it's such a good horror movie.
Well, this is one of the things that gets me about that film in particular is I've seen it, God knows how many times. I've seen it a ton of times, but every single time I watch it, I seem to pick out something else I
Something
missed.
different. Yeah, yeah,
How can you
same
watch a
way.
movie so many times and keep missing these little things here and there.
I think it was about 5 years ago, they were running it again in theaters. I was probably for the 45th anniversary or something. And I went, and it was the first time I ever got to see it on a big screen because, I didn't see it when it originally came out. And seeing it on a big screen like that, there's so much more detail that you have never seen before. It was like the bottle with the holy water dripping out was so vivid. And it's like, I never paid attention to that scene before. And it was just amazing, the detail in that. So,
oh man. And Linda Blair, man, I mean, to be 13 years old or however old
she was brilliant. Yeah.
Dude.
It's such a shame she didn't continue doing acting,
my God.
Although I hear she's in the new one. Like she shows up at some point.
For my listening audience, I will neither confirm nor deny that. But
okay, well, I've already read that happened. So that was the only thing that kind of piqued my interest.
And it was all right. I'm gonna just put it out there. It was a cameo. There was a cameo at the end.
Okay, that's what I thought.
So it wasn't, if she were more involved, maybe I would have liked it a little more.
I'll watch it when it's streaming, but yeah, it wasn't theater worthy. It's not the original, so it's not theater worthy for me.
Yeah, well, I liked obviously the original, and I liked Exorcist 3.
Yeah, I agree. The third one was good. Yeah,
and then kind of the rest, I'm like, They had us.
Yeah, the heretic. That was.
I was like, I don't know. Ugh. Yeah, I'm with you on that. That's my official review of that. Blah.
Yeah, blah. Yeah, that's how I read. Blah.
Oh my goodness. Well, Cindy, it has been amazing talking to you. What I want to do now is kind of be quiet again. I ramble a lot. And I know
I do too. I mean, I talk for a living, so I tend to talk a lot.
Well, that's great for podcasts when you're the guest. When you're the host, people don't want to hear me ramble for 20 minutes straight. But what I want to do is give you an opportunity to talk about anything you got out there, where people can find you. I'm going to put links in the podcast notes below. So
I don't even know what my YouTube page is. Cindy Maples. I don't know.
Yeah, I found it. And I'll put links. I'll put links down there.
Yeah, and that's where all my stuff, the stuff that I've done, is all on my YouTube page. Yeah. Okay, so Cindy Maples somewhere.
I will definitely put that down. Is there anything? I know you said you're in Wisconsin. You're trying to get connections, but is there anything?
I am, yeah, or not. I don't know. I'm happy with my life, and like I said, it's so great that we are now living in a time where a friend of mine living in Texas, which is about as far away as you can get from Wisconsin, can still put me in his latest and greatest masterpiece. So I don't know that it matters where you're at, because it's going to be huge, and I'm so excited to be a part of that. So yeah, Titanfall, New Frontiers. Keep your eyes open for that one because it's going to be amazing, and I think it's going to change how independent film is made. Because it's all independent. It's nothing is being paid for on this. All the programs that he's using are accessible to everybody, and he has no problem showing people how to do this. The technology is way beyond my poor little worn out brain. The fact that we sit in front of a cell phone like I'm doing right now and recorded our facial expressions and acted basically in front of a cell phone, and he's taking that and creating this series out of it. It's just amazing to me that he's able to do that. So
it's creating a world from that stuff.
Yeah, he is absolutely creating a world. All the cinematographers that are working on this the stuff that I've seen, it just blows my mind. It's just so amazing. So I'm so excited to see it. March 11th, cannot get here soon enough.
Well, I'm going to put that in the podcast notes as well. And if you I know you write too. I mean, I don't know if you write in a format
I don't write. I write scripts. So okay. Yeah, I write radio commercials. That's what pays the bills. So
gotcha. Well, I was gonna say maybe I could connect you with Henrik at some point, and you guys can toss ideas off of one another. He's like I said, he does a lot of independent films, and he does He's done a couple of TV series. He did a found footage series during the pandemic where he actually had contributors, friends of his contributed stories and films, and he
I'm gonna
put
have to look him up. That sounds fascinating.
yeah. Well, go to weeklyspooky.com
Absolutely.
or
Glad.
Henflix. He has his own website. It's henflix.com. So go check him out. You may like him.
Okay.
He's a good
Oh yeah, absolutely.
he is a good character. Well, Cindy, it was amazing having you on. I'm glad you agreed to
Well,
come
thank you
on.
so much for asking me, Charles. I love when somebody says, "Hey, I saw you in this movie and I loved it. And can you talk to me?" I think that's amazing. Just out of nowhere, I get emails every once in a while about somebody saw Hell is Full or Widow or, just one of those movies that I did seems like forever ago. And they'll be like, "I love that movie. You're great in that movie." I love that. It makes me feel like I haven't wasted my time.
Oh no. You're super talented. So
So
I'm
I am so happy that you love the Old Hag because it was so much fun to make, and Justin and Zane are so amazing to
oh
work
yeah,
with.
yeah. I
So,
definitely loved it. But
and Justin's one of those people that he's going to go somewhere, and so is Zane. They both are so talented. So yeah, I mean, if they called me tomorrow, I'd be like, yeah, I'll figure out a way to get to Pennsylvania. I don't, whatever it takes.
I think Cindy needs to be in the barn 3, Justin. Just saying.
I would be there in a heartbeat. I would
Just
be there in a
saying. The
heartbeat.
barn 3.
They know that though. They know I love them, and they know I would do anything for them.
Yeah, I mean he's a great guy. He's a great guy.
He is.
And
Absolutely, he is.
definitely enjoyed talking to him. Definitely enjoyed the Old Hag, but I'm enjoying everything else I've seen you in so far. So you've given me a catalog I need to go look up. My audience needs to go look it up. I'll put links below. If you have any other links, Cindy, you can message them to me directly and I'll stick them in there for people
Okay.
to find
I
you.
don't. That's pretty much it.
That's
I'm on
pretty much it.
YouTube. So
Okay. All right. Well, we'll
YouTube and IMDb, that's, because on IMDb there's links to how you watch the movies.
yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'm gonna
There's
check out.
actually one I was I was in a film. It was right after I'd done Widow, which was the very first one that I talked about, that I went and auditioned for. And it's called Birthday Massacre or something like, or I think that's what it's called. It's changed its name a couple of times. So anyway, a Homecoming Massacre. That's it. It wound up being Homecoming Massacre. It just came out like last year. And that's like streaming now too. I think it's on Tubi and everything. So
Okay.
so if you want to see me from long time ago that just came out, I mean, it just never give up on a project because apparently they're like me. They just keep going. So he finally got it out and it was really cool.
Well, nice. I'll definitely check that out too. I love going to Tubi and finding movies like that. Um, but anyway, thank you again for being on the podcast.
Thank you, Charles.
I am Charles Campbell, a small town horror author. You can find me at valleyboypublications.com. You can also find our Facebook page on Facebook, Horror 421 the podcast. I also host a music podcast for musicians only called Backstage 421 the Musicians Only Podcast. Be sure to check that out and subscribe. And check out my latest book, The Piano Witch. It just came out in October. So check it out. It's a cool cover done by John Stoney Cannon. He's a local artist. Shout out to John. Thank you so much. Check out The Piano Witch, valleyboypublications.com. And we'll see you next time on Horror 421, the podcast. Take care.